And I'd like to open our show with a personal story about three generations in my family. My grandfather, may rest in peace, he immigrated from Yemen to Israel in the 1920s. My father was born here in Israel in the 1940s, and obviously so was I. When I was young, my grandfather, he was over 90, and I used to sit next to him all the time, taking care of him, and he used to tell me stories. And I remember how he told me about how much he yearned to come here, and about his journey here, which was very complicated, and about the feelings that he felt here in Israel, and how materialistically wise life here was not simple, but he was always high-spirited. He was always happy about living in the Holy Land. My father is a part of the generation that built this country. He built himself, he built his family, he built this society, this country. He contributed whatever he could. I'm the third generation. And like everyone else, I was brought up to be a Zionist. I served in the army. I finished the army, and like everyone else, I packed up and went to travel overseas. I found myself abroad, in different places. Eventually, I found myself in India, living in paradise. Here you have the ocean. Here you have palms, a well in my backyard, no one around, and I was sure that I will never leave this place. I had everything that I need in order to live like a king. To cut things short, eventually I came back to Israel, but many of my friends that went through the very same course in life eventually didn't come back, or they came back and went again. And today I have a few friends that live in Australia. Some of my friends live in New York. Some of my friends live in Europe now. What I want to ask about is the attitude that these three generations had towards Israel since my grandfather left Yemen and to this day. I never asked, but I'm sure that my father, who was already born here in Israel, he never imagined to live in any other place than Israel. Sure, there was business overseas, but that's going and coming back. But I'm sure that he never thought about leaving Israel. And he has 5 children. At least 3 of them were all the time traveling back and forth overseas, and sometimes asking themselves, everything's great here abroad. Why not stay here? So what I want to ask is, what happened to our sense of belonging to this country? It's not that I ever had a problem with being Jewish or Israeli, but our feelings towards this country went through a serious metamorphosis. What happened? It's the natural connection that tied a person to the nation. It existed throughout the 2,000 years of exile until not long ago. From the 1970s, more or less, it started more or less back then, the cooling down of the feeling of belonging to this nation, this country, this land, being a part of it. People became smarter, more egoistic. The truth is, what can you do? The people of Israel is a very complex people. They consist of hatred and love. Our ego is huge. It rejects us from each other. But in the past, we developed our connection. And this dates back to the days of Abraham, who founded our nation. And even though that it was it ended 2,000 years ago. 3,500 years ago, it started in ancient Babylon. Meaning, it existed in some way for 1,500 years, even though that there were different kinds of collisions and pro and con, and people really held on to the connection. And there were those among the people of Israel who fought against the connection. There were very hard situations, but still, nonetheless, we held on to it, and because when we're connected, we're in possession of the power of connection that exists in nature, the upper force that's hidden, but exists in nature and keeps all the parts of reality together. And we drew this force upon ourselves, the people, and we used it. Therefore, this force existed until it cooled down and left only in our times. But since ancient Babylon, through Moses, through the people of Israel that lived in the land of Israel, with all the different events that they went through, with the shattering of the temple, that means that we have reached unfounded hatred, and afterwards, in our times, even that concept of unfounded hatred no longer exists. Simply today, we have no idea why we Jews, why do we have to be together, what do we have as a result of being the people of Israel. We have to disperse, each going his own way, and that's it. And we came to the land of Israel. Really, like you said, we thought about building the people of Israel and the land of Israel here, but we didn't know how to do it. We didn't. The Zionists came, they really invested themselves completely. But they didn't know how to build the country. They built the kibbutzes, and they lived this way for some years, but afterwards it started falling apart because what they felt didn't pass to their children in heritage. What doesn't pass in heritage? What feeling doesn't pass in heritage? The inclination towards connection. It doesn't pass in heritage. This is something that you have to work at. So they came because they really suffered in exile and they had an awakening from above, you can say. So they came here and they built. But their children, they were much more immersed in corporeality. And so they started building companies here. Egged, the Israeli bus company, the electric company, Mapai, Mapam, and so on. And the struggle over power began. So if I understand what you're saying, the ego started celebrating above the point of connection. Okay. It started celebrating, and here in Israel it's truly celebrating. The ego made us feel that we don't belong here. The celebration of the ego in the Israeli society makes us feel that we don't belong here. The people of Israel are a collection of people, a gathering of people that are unrelated. They came from the 70 nations that lived in ancient Babylon, and they connected only because they had an idea, the so-called point in the heart, that we want to connect above our ego. That's it. And this is how they connected. Abraham taught them. When they're connected above their ego, they're called Jews. But still, they consist of two forces, the force of separation, and above it, the force of connection. That's called love will cover for all crimes. If the power, the force of unity, disappears, that force that keeps them together leaves. What's left is the force of separation, and they want to disperse in all directions, as they originally were, being a part of the 70 nations of the world that originally lived in Babylon. It was the origin of humanity back then. So, what follows is that we're unrelated. We're not one family. We're not one people. All the English people, they come from the same genes. We don't.